Welcome to Kirsty TV. Thanks for being here on our latest Google Hangout. We're here today with Hanif Jordan. Hanif was on our show earlier this week. You'll be able to find the podcast interview, or under our YouTube playlist Google Hangouts, you'll be able to find a slideshow with her recorded interview. And we spoke about at 15 she went through a gang rape situation, and then for a year after that was sexually abused by a family member. So today she's here. Welcome, Hanif. Thanks for being here online.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to continue the conversation because the audio got abruptly cut off, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how do you move forward from that, once you've been through something so tragic. Now, I was looking at the photos this week, and I don't think even during our interview it truly hit me how young you were at the time.
Oh, yes, very young. Just a baby. Your world is secure up until, I always say, evil shows its presence.
Yeah. And I mean, you were literally this tiny little small teenager. You were so young and vulnerable. You didn't even know what sex was, and you're taken by these three big men. And I think that was something that stood out in the interview to me, that you were saying no young girl is a match for any grown man, let alone three.
I agree. No young girl is. And how do you fight back? At some point, you do stop physically fighting to save your life. And even with the abuse from the family member, I was just 16. I'm thinking when I came back from Oregon when it happened, so I was just 16, and this man was married and in his late 30s. What am I to do at that age? Except for where I tell you I take the responsibility to where my gut, I didn't listen to my gut, and had I listened to my gut both incidents, I don't believe any of those things would have happened. Ignoring our inner self.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that even that is hard for you to take responsibility for, because nobody taught you to trust that. I mean, how many young kids do we encourage to understand their intuition, to have that inner knowing? We don't teach that at school, so a lot of the time it's not until you're an adult that you really start to even know what intuition is.
I agree. Parents do not teach their kids that. I mean, I don't think you think about teaching your child that. You just want to give them all the love that you can give them, and you feel that you're keeping them in a safe surrounding. But that's my biggest lesson. I think I explained that to you when we talked. For me, I teach my children that to listen to their gut, and they will never be second guessed by me or my husband.
Yep.
At all.
I love the line that we tweeted: if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right.
Isn't right, exactly.
That was just so powerful, I think, and we need to listen to that more. And it was really interesting because after our conversation, some of the viewers have commented, and one viewer said to me, she's a small girl, she's 21, and she was invited to go to a party with some people from work that she didn't know very well. And after listening to your interview, she didn't go. And she realized that she had to, I know. I can see Hanif clapping there, but the camera's still on me. But that just was so powerful for me, because she understood that she was putting herself in a dangerous situation. She didn't know these people. She was really quite small. What would she do to defend herself? And until she knew them better, she needed to be in a public place. So I think that that's a lesson that everyone can take away from this, is to start, one, putting yourself in safe situations, but two, listening to yourself. But if we go back, so when you were, as I said to you, it just really struck me how small you were. What would you say to other young girls? Because you made a comment that you had a great mother who would have listened and been open, but you still didn't tell her. So there's a lot of young girls, 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 5 boys, I think the statistics are, that are sexually abused, and it's going on every day, and there'll be somebody watching this video who is in that situation. What would you say to them?
My advice to them, and let me be clear, my mother was going through her own abuse, so I think I took in my head, how can I add any more stress onto this lady? Well, what I want to tell young girls, that's not your place. Your place is to go and tell your parent. And if you can't tell your parent, go to an adult, somebody that can help you, because what's happening to you is wrong. It is not your fault. You are not even equipped to handle what an adult is doing to you. We're not taught I didn't come up where sex was all on TV and all this kind of stuff. You know, my life was really sheltered. I thank my mom for that, which was a good thing. I still was able to be a kid. But in the same sense, we're not equipped for that seduction that an adult will do to a young girl. You're just not equipped for it. So my advice is tell and keep telling until someone listens.
Yeah, I think that that's really powerful, that keep telling, because you might tell somebody who is a school teacher or a friend or a parent who doesn't listen, doesn't believe you. That does happen, sadly. I mean, it breaks my heart that that happens, but it does. So I think that that's a really important message, that keep telling, because there will be somebody who believes you, who will help you, who knows that this is wrong. So, Hanif, I guess moving forwards a little bit in the story, and we did touch a little bit on this in the interview, but I really want to talk about before the turning point, you went into a bit of a dark place. So you weren't, you know, it's not like immediately you were able to remarry and be happy and move forward in life. There was a time where this was a little bit of to and fro for you. So what was going on in your, you know, 17, 18, 19, 20?
Oh, I definitely didn't like myself. I call it self-mutilation. To feel anything, but also not knowing that this is not appropriate. This is not how men are supposed to treat a woman. But in my head, I figured that's what all men did. I never had the opportunity just to fall in love and give myself to the person that I loved, and that's what I dreamed of as a young girl. I went through.
Did you feel resentment at that? Did you feel like you lost that freedom and opportunity to fall in love like young girls do?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then there was a time I blamed myself, because what did I do for someone to want to do that to me? Like, did I have a sign on my forehead that said, "Go ahead and abuse this young girl. She'll take it. She's not going to tell." You don't. It's hard to grasp. It's hard to wrap your mind around that kind of trauma done to you.
Yeah, and I think especially, I mean, you were mentioning that you grew up in quite a religious community where virginity was something to be saved and kept. So there was also this trauma of you're now feeling dirty and used, and that conflict of, is it your fault because you're told that that's bad, but you're too young to understand you didn't choose that.
Right. I am still a Christian woman, and I don't want people to think, oh, I'm not a religious person. I don't like that stigma. I don't think that that's what the Bible teaches you, to be religious. It just teaches you to have the love of God in your life. So with that being said, even though I was taught that you should wait till you're married, I still believe that it is a gift that you give someone that you're in love with. That's how I interpreted it at that time. I wasn't in love with any of these people that did that to me. I didn't say it was okay. So I was kind of really confused, and then I felt dirty. You know, I would have different men approach me in that kind of way, not realizing that what I was feeling internal, I was showing on the outward. And so that's why I was having those type of people, I was attracting those type of men.
Right. How do you start to change that? How do you start to shift the way you see yourself so you're not attracting that?
Well, first you have to do the work. I know it's hard when people say work. Yes, you have to do the work. You have to first forgive yourself first. And you have to forgive what those people, you have to forgive what the person did to you as well. Because if you continue to have that harbor and that hate, they moved on with their lives. They're doing whatever it is. They're not thinking 2 seconds about you. And yet you're giving them your power. Yeah. And so I decided not to give anybody else my power, period. I decided to love me for me. All of me, the good in me, the bad in me, the mistakes that I made, and realize that I'm just human, and that is okay. It is okay. And once I did that and started doing the work to kind of know myself, the respect that I had for myself, everyone else followed.
And so was it around that time that you started being able to talk about what had happened publicly?
No, I didn't start talking about really being open about the rape until my 30s.
Wow. And so at what age did you start to really turn around your belief and mindset and all of that negativity and the way you were seeing yourself?
I started, I think I was about 24, 25. I
So it took a good decade. There was a good 10 years of
Oh,
self-loathing.
yes. And that's what I mean. I want to help someone not wait a decade to change
Yeah.
and miss
So
out.
what do you think you needed to hear? Like what could fast track those 10 years?
It was what I was telling myself. No one else could have helped me. It wouldn't have mattered what anybody else had said to me because I wouldn't have believed them anyway. So you cannot live your life holding on someone else's word. That is a big lesson for me. You can't worry about what someone else feels about you because their perception of you can change. And then what? So today they like you, tomorrow they don't, and then what? So you've been holding on to that. So I had to do the work just to love myself, to be able to look in the mirror at myself and I told you these words that I use now in my foundation with kids. I teach the kids to say what I said to myself. I am beautiful on the inside because it shines on the outside. Simple and plain. I'm a beautiful person.
On the inside because it shines on the outside. When tweet that.
Yes, because I feel that once I realized my beauty within, it was radiant on the outside. And that's how I got to have great energy. It was able to bring, attract the right type of people around me. And also, I demanded my respect from myself first, and then everyone will follow suit. And that is my biggest lesson to the young girl and boy out there. You don't have to disrespect yourself. If you respect yourself, others will follow. And if you demand that, no one will ever come in your space treating you any other way. And as you know me, Kirsty, I'm big on respect.
Yes. Well, and I can see why, because as you say, it becomes such a thread through everything and how you're perceiving yourself and how you want others to perceive you. So in your, you had a very promiscuous stage, and in the interview it was interesting that you said that a lot of women who are raped go through, that stage of promiscuity.
Absolutely.
What do you think that is?
Self-mutilation. Simple and you don't love yourself.
So if it's not that, it might be drugs or alcohol.
It could be all of the above. All of the above. For me, it was sexual, but it was also alcohol for me, hard liquor, because you're constantly trying to numb everything of what happened to you. The minute you're not numb, then you have to deal with it, right? So reality sets in. And
it's really interesting that you could, spend a decade numbing it, and I guess that's sort of a point for other people if they're sitting there and they've been, I had a couple of people who wrote in some questions that I'll share, and they've been suffering for 10, 20 years and they do not know how to move forward from this. And
this is what I'll tell you.
Sorry, I think that what you just said is one of the things they need to understand, that you can numb for 10 years and it doesn't ever go away.
It will never go away. The nightmares will still happen. The triggers are still going to happen. So that's why I said you have to do the work, and you have to feel yourself worthy enough that you are important to do the work for. Yeah. There's only one you. And you may not understand, like how through my crisis time, the 10 years, I was like, well, why am I still here? Why did God choose me? Why just didn't kill me during that time? And I thought, how selfish later when I came out of that haze of me to just take my life for granted like that. We don't have that right to do that. There's a reason. And we may not understand the reason, but your trials can be your testimony, right? And it can save someone that may be going through what you're going through or stop someone from even going through it. You have to give yourself permission to heal. And I just feel like we don't have the right to rob the world of our good gifts.
Yeah.
Right? So
totally. But when someone has been through something so painful and traumatic, you can understand them feeling like they don't want to live, they don't want to be here anymore.
I was that person.
Yeah.
I was that person.
I think out of all of the interviews I've done, the two hardest have been yours and a lady who was human trafficked.
Right. Yeah.
Raped by 40 men. To me, they were the toughest. And how you've been able to move forward and live full, rich lives is just such a testament to both of your courage and strength.
Can I be honest with you? I think at some point you get tired of being tired. Kirsty, that's the truth. There had to be another way. I was used to the hurt, the pain, the drama. I mean, when was that going to end? And I realized it was going to end when I decided to change it.
And I mean, that's a hard thing. When you've been through a gang rape or sexual abuse for a year, how do you eliminate those visions, those nightmares?
You don't. I'm not going to sugarcoat that for people. I don't think that's truth when people say, "Oh, you just forget." That's a lie, Kirsty. You don't.
You're not going to forget.
No, you don't forget. It is embedded in you because it was so long of something that you went through that was traumatic.
But I think that's the hard thing. That's what people are trying to do, is get to a place where they're trying to numb so that they forget it.
Well, can I say this?
They have to accept they won't.
You have to accept that it happened to you, for one. It did, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it wasn't your fault, and you can't change that. So now that you know those 4 facts, what are you going to do about it? For me,
I think the other part though is that you also have to accept this is going to be with you forever.
I agree. And what I mean by that is, okay, say that you have a loved one that passed away that you were very close to. Do you ever forget that pain? I'm talking about tragically may pass. For instance, my baby brother, who passed at the age of 26. Do I ever forget him? Does the pain ever go away? No, it just gets better with time. That's it. And I choose to think of the good memories of him instead of harp on how he left here. Same thing with what happened to me. I choose to think of all the great things that I did have when I was a child instead of focusing on all the negative things that happened to me. And I work through them. And I don't punish my mate for what I went through in my past. Because remember, I told you there was a time that I did that.
Yeah.
Poor man. You know,
Poor man.
Punishing him for something when he was just trying to show me affection, that he loved me. Women have to realize, and even men, we have to realize to be honest about our triggers.
Yes.
Don't assume your mate knows, because they don't. That's not something they experience. How do they know? Be honest about your triggers, work through them, and stop punishing yourself to have good love, because sometimes we punish ourselves. And I did that for a long time. I punished myself, and I just embraced good love, so it's easier. I have my nights. I am being honest with you. There's my nights that I'll have a nightmare about something, but the comforting thing is that I have someone next to me that can help me through those nights.
Oh, and I love your husband. He's so adorable.
Yes, and I'm starting to cry, excuse me, but I'm grateful for that, but I would have never experienced that had I not healed myself.
Yeah.
I just want the girls or the guy that may have went through this to know that it's just do the work to heal yourself. The love is there. It will find you. But you have to heal yourself first. And it is no one else's job to do it but your own. And I know that's hard for someone to hear, but it's the truth. It's no one else's job to heal you but your own. And I think I was very honest with you when I said I take responsibility for my actions in my tragedy. And I get sometimes good feedback and sometimes I don't. But it is my truth. And if I had listened and opened my mouth and told my mom, I don't think, if I would have just said, Mom, you know, he looks at me funny, he's hit on me before that sexual stuff happened.
Yes.
I don't think it would have happened. So don't be afraid to tell. And if she wouldn't have listened, I should have continued to tell somebody till somebody did something about it.
Yes.
Because, you know, no one has the right to rob anybody's innocence, you know.
Wow, there's just so many pieces to all of this, and I'm just loving this conversation because I know how many people it's going to heal. So I think that I love that you say, like, it's your truth and you're just being honest, and not everyone's going to agree or like it, because I think that that's really important for people to understand. Like, this is your story, your experience, and it may hit with other people and it may not. But I think that what's important is that people understand that if they've been through something so traumatic that even just one day in their life can consume everything and become their whole world. And the other thing for them to look at is go, okay, well, maybe I don't have to focus on that one day for the next decade and numb every day because of that one day in my life. There were other parts to my life. I think that that is key. You've made so many amazing points. And I think that, you know, there is this tragedy that not just for sexual abuse, for people who, you know, in all of my guests, depression, eating disorders, everything that I've covered, I see this same pattern of before they're willing to own it, accept it, and share it, and just be okay with it, like their pretty little secret instead of their dirty little secret holding guilt and shame, until that point, they spend decades, wasting decades of their life obsessing about this issue. So it's being able to accept that the numbing is just prolonging the healing. The numbing means that you're not dealing with it earlier on, because if you were willing to talk about it 10 years earlier, yet you still got to do the work, whether it's now or in 10 or 20 years. Otherwise, you're going to spend your whole life numbing. So when you talk about the work, what does that mean for you? What is the work? And I know you touched on a couple of things that you feel are the work, like triggers and anchors, but if you
learning my triggers, because I tell you, when my husband tried to kiss me in the back of my neck, just to show me affection if I'm washing dishes, for me, it drove me nuts. And I didn't realize why until later on that that's what the person that raped me used to do, and it creeped me out. And so I was punishing my husband for that. Now, but I was honest with him. Now, I'll try anything. I think you should enjoy your sex life with someone that you're with. You don't punish them. But that was something that I can't stand. And that would trigger something for me and bring back that memory. And I had to be honest with me first and then be honest with my mate. But I worked through it. Because do I continue to punish him? Or do I learn to enjoy the union that we have? And I learned to enjoy the union that we have, because he's not trying to hurt me.
No. Well, and I think that that's one of the things I loved about you when we first met, and it was one of the reasons I actually wanted to have this conversation with you, because when I first met you, you were joking around about getting home and having some action or something like that with the girls, as we all were, having a lighthearted conversation, but you had shared with me your story of being raped, and I found that so interesting that you were able to get to this place where sex wasn't about, you know, as you said, initially it had been something that had robbed you of so much, had been violent and abusive, and your first experience was a gang rape with 3 violent men. So how you're able to, you know, you can't remove it, but somehow put it in a different place, and over here have an intimate, loving, sexual experience with your husband, I think is something that so many women struggle with and have no one to talk about or ask this about, because how many of you, you know, have a girlfriend that you can say, you know, that have also been through what you have, that can talk to you about it. So for you to get to that place, how were you able to separate those two? Did it start like that?
No.
I mean, did you go through years where you didn't want to be touched?
No, there was a time I just didn't want to be touched, period. And there are moments that I find myself doing one of those, and then I have to catch myself and realize this is my husband, I'm tripping, right? But I went ahead and got counseling, and I know a lot of people are, especially the black community, with the counseling thing, you know, oh, she's crazy. But I almost had a nervous breakdown after the fact, though. I mean, in my early, I think I already had both my children, and it resurfaced. I think I told you once, my real father passed, and my mother told me her story, and it was time to get help. You know, I had been resilient up until that time, and I feel that God saved me up until that time. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We have one of your beautiful children in the background.
I actually have my nephew with me, and he's so upset. And my son is trying to babysit him, and he doesn't like it at all. So I'm sorry, everybody, if you hear the baby. But
we'll survive.
Definitely. Don't be afraid to get the help, because it helped me kind of figure out a lot of issues. Yeah. And to work it out, and that's why I'm able to be the loving wife that I am, and sex isn't an issue for me with my husband. I'm not saying that I don't have my moments, but it sure isn't the way it was, where he couldn't even touch me, you know, without me jumping.
I think that that's really important for other women to know and understand, that, you know, it doesn't start that way, that you did have issues. You know, obviously anyone who goes through that kind of rape is going to be, you know, their skin's going to crawl at the idea of somebody even getting close to them. I mean, for some people it may even be touching their hand. So I think that that's, again, you know, really great for people to just kind of get that there's a transition to get to this point, to do the work. It does take time and energy, emotionally, physically, spiritually, to process all of this in a way that makes sense and that you can make meaning from it to be able to move forward. So in terms of the triggers is one thing people need to be aware of, and I think that that's something that, you know, it just comes down to self-awareness, starting to pay attention when your skin crawls, when your husband kisses the back of your neck, and think, you know, why am I reacting that way when I don't react that way at other times? Is there any advice you have around starting to recognize the patterns and being aware of your behavior?
I actually had a log. I just wrote a log on like
a journal?
Yeah, just a small little journal on why I was going through that and what I felt during that time. Because sometimes it doesn't come to you right away. You don't even connect the dots right away. So give yourself permission to take the time out to connect the dots. And then
that's very powerful.
Yeah.
So journaling it, and then over time you might be able to see through 5 or 6 entries that you're having a similar reaction or behavior at different times.
Yes. I think that for me, I didn't realize it right away and didn't know that this was something that I was a trigger, and why and where it came from. I knew it creeped me out, but I didn't understand, well, why does that why would someone kissing me on my neck creep me out, you know? Journaling helped me go, oh, that's why. Now I know.
I think the other thing is that you talk about how it keeps coming up. You know, it's not something that, oh, I've worked on this and it's done. It might come up when you get married, or it might come up 2 years into the marriage. It may come up when your father passes. It may come up when the perpetrator, you hear something about them, or when you have your first children and your children are the same age as you were. There's so many milestone moments that can re-trigger things that you have to do the work all over again.
I agree, especially with children. I think I told you when I was pregnant, I feared of having a daughter. Like, that was my biggest fear. I was like, please do not give me no daughter, because I felt like girls were prey.
Wow.
But I was blessed with sons, but my husband still wants a little girl. I'm in a space now that I don't mind to do that, but before there was just, it wasn't even an option for me. And when my kids became a certain age to where things happened to me, I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, I always remember that I was like, oh, I was very overprotective, but I also, see, you can either take your tragedy and let it be a hardship, or you can take it and let it be your blessing. For me, I can spot someone that is that way, and I don't sacrifice my kids at all. I don't care if you're family, friend, associate. You are no longer family. You're no longer friend. You're no longer associate. If I even think that that's something that you're capable of.
Well, and I think that that's great. You were talking about that idea that you almost can smell it on someone and you can see it straight away. And you know, I think, you know, again, bringing it up with your children, and how many people have already gotten that from our last interview, that was their takeaway. I'm just so proud of that. I think that, you know, if there's one thing people take from this, it's listen to your gut instinct. Be aware, and obviously, you know, it's amazing for the women who have been abused. I think there's a lot of healing messages here for them.
I agree, but I want them to know, don't take your tragedy and blame everybody else. False blaming, okay?
Yeah.
Really do your research and know. And when you really follow your gut, you'll know, like your real gut, not your tragedy, your gut. So you have to heal from it first, so that you don't think everybody in the world is that way. But I never second guess myself, and I think I told you that. I just won't do it. If I'm out somewhere and I feel like I need to leave, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Prior to that, I would have been the one, oh, stay, you know, I'll just stay. Even when your friends are probing you to stay, you're like, okay, fine. And then something always happens. Even if it's not to you, something always, that's your God telling you that you're not safe.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is the book that I told you about, The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And on the back he says, you know, a date won't take no for an answer, or the new nanny gives you a mother an uneasy feeling, or a stranger's in a deserted parking lot offering unsolicited help. And he was actually on Oprah. And this is, I mean, this book will save lives. It's an amazing book. And one of the things he talks about, he goes through case studies of people who were kidnapped or raped or were in a situation where they were probably going to be killed. And one particular one I remember reading, and the lady, he said that he would let her go after, and so they met in the elevator. He offered to help with the groceries. Her gut instinct said, just felt a bit uneasy, but she didn't want to be rude. She didn't want to embarrass him. So she let him help her in with the groceries. He then raped her, and he would have killed her. But what happened was he said, I'm going to let you go. And then just before he was untying her, he went to shut the windows. Now, afterwards, when Gavin de Becker interviews her and works out what were the triggers, how did she know, that was one of the things on an unconscious level. Her intuition knew that he was closing it so no one would hear, and he was going to kill her. So she took that opportunity to run, and that was the only opportunity she got, and it saved her life. But I think that these are those moments, what we were talking about, that you have to be willing to listen to your gut. You knew, I remember the words you used in the interview, that everything in your body told you this man meant you no good, in reference to the uncle. And you knew that you shouldn't be getting in the car with the 3 guys who eventually it was a gang rape. And so there's these moments where you were too young to understand that then, but you now know. And I think that that's powerful for anyone listening, that we have to start tuning in, tapping in, and as you said with your children, you acknowledge them when they get it right, you support them when they get it right, so they then feel validated to keep doing that.
I think we're not taught in society to teach our children that, and for me, if they're wrong, that's okay too, but I'm not going to wait to find out if they're wrong. So I always tell them that your father and I will back you up 100%. If it isn't right, if it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. I'm not in your body. I don't have your gut that you have, and if you feel like something's off, then you follow that. And
that's our mantra this week. Tweet. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't right. If it doesn't feel right, it isn't.
It's the truth, and I think we ignore it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Like you said, the lady in the book, didn't want to be rude. And women do this more than anyone else. We never want to be rude or seem mean. But to be honest with you, it's not even about that. Your safety is in play. And you have to be willing to save yourself. Why don't we feel that we're important enough just to say no? If you're not, no, thank you, but thank you. And follow your gut. And that's what I do now. I don't second guess that at all. I just won't do it. For my husband,
there's so many powerful lessons there. Follow your gut. Listen to yourself, your intuition. Tell someone. Keep telling until somebody listens.
And don't let other people talk you out of. We do this, and you know this to be true too. Chrissy, say we're going out, and I'm like, Chrissy, just stay. But everything in you is telling you to stay because you trust that friend. You don't need to do that. My husband can't make me. I love him to death. We've been married 13 years, but if I feel something, he can stay all he wants to. Guess where I'm going to go? In my car, and I'm leaving, and you figure your way home by yourself. Absolutely. Because I'm usually right. My husband will tell you, I'm not even usually. There has not been a one time that since I've been married to him that I've told him about somebody that I've been wrong. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been. I've never been wrong.
Yeah.
And that's something. And even when he didn't listen, he'll come back home and say, "Oh my goodness, honey, you won't believe. Well, maybe you will because you told me about this person, and look what happened. I'm never wrong." And so, because when I'm listening to my gut, I'm never wrong. When I listen to my emotions, that's the key. That's why I don't want any rape victims or any child molestation victim to misconstrue your emotions with your gut. Those are two different things. Your emotions can have you doing this, right? Mm-hmm. But your gut will never lead you wrong. So follow your gut. Follow your gut.
Yeah, I think listen to your inner knowing. Know what you feel. So I want to leave this on, I think there's a lot of people who've been sexually abused or been through some kind of rape, and they're going to struggle with the point in our interview where we talked about the fact that you're probably not ever going to be able to forget it. And I think that it's a really powerful point because I think that that's where people are trying to get. I've interviewed people with disabilities who've lost arms or limbs, and in a lot of situations, the people who don't move forward are the ones who want to go back to the way things were.
Well, you can't, and that's my point. You're punishing yourself for something you cannot change.
You can't reverse it.
You can't. It's just like giving childbirth. Do you ever forget the pain that you went through when you gave birth to the baby? No, you don't. But the beauty of having that baby, and what I mean by that is you will never forget the tragedy that you went through. But the beauty of just being not letting that kill you and not giving them the power, you're missing out on the most beautiful person in the world, and that is yourself. That is what you're missing out on. And I choose not to live in my past. I choose to live in my love, in my laughter, in my light, and enjoy my life. I don't choose to live in that darkness. And you have to make that choice not to live in that darkness. But how long are you going to take? Are you going to let your life pass you by and you turn around and you're 70 years old and you've never loved, you never allowed love to come in you because of one act of cruelty from someone else? From someone else, and I will not allow anybody to take my joy. It's just not going to happen. They didn't give me my joy. That joy came from God, and I have the right to have that.
That's beautiful. And I think that, even the dark times, they teach us, they stretch us, but it's all about how we're willing to see it. Willing to see that we don't want to go back to where we were. We want to go forwards. One of my friends calls it bouncing forwards, not bouncing back. And we want to get to a new place, a better place. Your life is richer and fuller now with a beautiful husband, with love that you never thought you'd ever experience or know, and 2 loving children. And you're now at a great place. So I think that's what people can hope to achieve if they can do their work and come through the darkness and understand that if they accept it as part of their life and something that happened, they can move forward from that.
I agree, Kirsty. I do. I think open up your closet of life, work through it, and become your authentic self, who you were supposed to be anyway. And
I love that. Tweet, who you were supposed to be. Become who you were supposed to be.
Anyway, I won't let them rob me of that. I'm still the young girl that wanted to be that entrepreneur, and I'm doing it now. I'm living my true self. So I didn't allow anybody to rob me. It just took me a little longer to get on that journey, but I'm here. I'm here.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I love chatting to you every time that we talk. There's so many new lessons, I think, for everyone. And I think some of the key ones that you've shared today are just around, tell someone, speak your truth, listen to your inner intuition. No matter how young you are, you can start really fostering that intuition.
Absolutely. Yes.
So for anyone out there, I know that if you've been through sexual abuse or rape, Hanif's story is really going to help you, inspire you, empower you, and help you to move forwards and bounce forwards in life. So tweet us, Facebook us, comment on YouTube, send us your questions. We're going to be having a conversation around this all week, and down below you can like us, comment, subscribe, anything that you want to do, and join that conversation. I look forward to seeing you next time on Kirsty TV. Bye.